Welcome, weary traveler of the waking world. Allow the noise and the hurry of your day to dissolve, to melt away like mist in the morning sun. Let my voice be your guide on a journey not through the clamor of the present, but into the deep, quiet heart of the past. We are not here to conquer mountains of fact, but to drift along a gentle river of time to a place where stone whispers secrets and the jungle breathes history. There is nothing for you to do but to listen, to feel the rhythm of the words, and to allow your mind to wander through the architectural wonders of a lost empire. Tonight, our destination is the emerald embrace of Cambodia, where the magnificent Khmer civilization carved its soul into the very earth. Imagine now, if you will, a world painted in shades of green. Feel the soft, humid air upon your skin, carrying the scent of damp earth, sweet blossoms, and ancient rain-washed stone. The light is soft, filtered through a colossal canopy of leaves, dappling the ground in shifting patterns of gold and shadow. We are standing at the dawn of a great power, a time before the world knew the name Angkor Wat, a time when the seeds of genius were just beginning to sprout from the fertile soil of Southeast Asia. Our story begins here, in the quiet beginnings, with the rise of god-kings and the birth of an architectural legacy that would echo through eternity. Birth of the god-kings. Early Khmer settlements and influences. Our journey into the architectural heart of the Khmer Empire does not begin with the colossal, world-famous temples that now dominate our imagination. It begins much more humbly, in the scattered settlements that dotted the plains and riverbanks of what is now modern-day Cambodia and parts of Vietnam and Thailand. We must first travel back to the early centuries of the first millennium, to the kingdoms of Funan and its successor, Shenla. These were the precursors, the cultural and political wombs from which the Angkorian civilization would eventually be born. The architecture of this period was not yet the grand symphony in stone that it would become. It was a quieter, more experimental melody, played on instruments of brick, wood, and laterite, a reddish, iron-rich soil that hardens when exposed to the air. The people of this time were masters of their environment, living in close harmony with the great Mekong River and the vast Tonle Sap Lake. Their homes, their public buildings, and their early shrines were primarily constructed from organic materials. Picture structures of timber and bamboo, raised on stilts to protect them from the seasonal floods that defined the rhythm of life. Roofs of thatch would have blended seamlessly into the lush landscape, creating settlements that seemed to grow from the earth itself rather than being imposed upon it. These perishable structures have long since returned to the jungle, leaving behind only faint traces for archaeologists to decipher. Yet, it was in the construction of their sacred spaces, their nascent temples, that the early Khmer people began to experiment with more permanent materials, laying the literal and figurative foundations for the empire to come. These earliest shrines were often simple, single-chambered brick towers known as prasats. They were modest in scale, intimate spaces designed to house a single deity. Imagine the texture of these ancient bricks, each one formed by hand from the local clay, fired in kilns, and painstakingly laid. The reddish hue of the brick would have stood in stark contrast to the verdant jungle, a warm, earthy beacon of human faith. These towers were often square in plan, rising to a tiered, corbelled roof that stepped inwards, creating a silhouette that seemed to reach for the heavens. The corbelling technique, where successive layers of brick are placed progressively closer until they meet at the top, was a fundamental building block of Khmer architecture. a principle they would later apply to stone with breathtaking sophistication. Into this developing landscape of indigenous traditions, a powerful new current began to flow from the west, from the great subcontinent of India. Traders, priests, and adventurers traveled the maritime routes of Southeast Asia, bringing with them not just goods and spices, but powerful ideas that would forever reshape the Khmer worldview. They brought the great religions of Hinduism, and to a lesser extent, Buddhism. They brought the Sanskrit language, epic tales like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and a complex cosmology centered on gods, demons, and the mythical geography of the cosmos. This influx of Indian culture was not a conquest, but a conversation, a creative fusion. The Khmer people did not simply copy Indian models. They adopted, adapted, and integrated them into their own unique cultural fabric. This is nowhere more apparent than in their evolving architecture. The simple brick prasats began to house new gods. The most prominent among them was Shiva, the destroyer and transformer, often worshipped in the form of a linga, a symbolic phallus representing his creative energy. Temples were also dedicated to Vishnu, the preserver, whose epic deeds were a source of endless artistic inspiration. The adoption of these new faiths introduced a new layer of symbolic meaning to their sacred buildings. The temple was no longer just a house for a local spirit. It became a microcosm of the universe. It was a tangible link between the earthly realm of humanity and the celestial realm of the gods. This concept gave rise to the single most important architectural idea in Khmer civilization, the Temple Mountain. In Hindu cosmology, the center of the universe is Mount Meru, a sacred five-peaked mountain where the gods reside. To build a temple was to build a replica of this cosmic mountain, to create an earthly dwelling place for the deity, and to allow the king, as the patron of the temple, to connect with the divine. The early temple mountains were not yet the stone behemoths of Angkor. They were more subtle, often utilizing natural hills or constructing modest, stepped pyramids of earth and laterite, crowned with a brick sanctuary at the summit. The symbolism, however, was already potent. The central tower represented the highest peak of Meru. The surrounding enclosure walls and moats, which became increasingly common, symbolized the mountain ranges and cosmic oceans that encircled it. To walk through one of these early temple complexes was to undertake a spiritual journey, moving from the profane outer world towards the sacred divine center. One of the most important surviving examples from this early period is the temple complex of Sambar Pre Kuk, which served as the capital of the Chenla kingdom in the 7th century. Here, nestled within the quiet forest, we find dozens of brick sanctuaries, many octagonal in shape, a unique feature of this early style. Walking among these ruins, one can feel the weight of time. The brickwork is adorned with exquisite carvings in sandstone, depicting figures from Hindu mythology and scenes of palace life, known as flying palaces. These carvings, though weathered by 13 centuries, show a remarkable delicacy and artistry. They are the first whispers of the narrative genius that would later explode across the vast walls of Angkor Wat. The artists were mastering the art of storytelling in stone, learning how to imbue inert material with life and meaning. They were also experimenting with decorative elements like false doors and colonnettes, architectural grammar that would become standard in the centuries to follow. The choice of materials was deeply connected to the land. The primary building blocks were those that the earth itself provided: the reddish clay for bricks, the iron-rich laterite for foundations and enclosure walls, and sandstone, quarried from the nearby Kulin Hills for the most important decorative elements like lintels, pediments, and statuary. The craft of the quarryman, the brickmaker, the mason, and the sculptor were becoming increasingly specialized and refined. The logistical challenge of extracting, transporting, and assembling these materials, even on a smaller scale, required a level of social organization and royal patronage that hinted at the burgeoning power of the Khmer kings. These rulers were not merely secular leaders. They were increasingly seen as devarajas, or god kings. This was a pivotal concept that inextricably linked royal power with divine authority. The king was the earthly representative of a particular god, most often Shiva. The state temple he constructed was therefore not just an act of piety, but a powerful political statement. It was the center of his kingdom, the source of his legitimacy, and a symbol of his power to maintain order and prosperity in the realm. The cult of the Devaraja ensured that the most talented artisans and the greatest resources of the kingdom were dedicated to temple construction, creating a powerful engine for architectural innovation. Each successive king sought to build a temple more grand and more magnificent than his predecessor, a divine competition that would ultimately drive the Khmer to achieve the seemingly impossible. Thus, in these early centuries, all the essential elements were in place. The Khmer had established a deep connection with their land and its cycles. They had mastered the use of local materials like brick and laterite. They had absorbed the powerful cosmological and religious ideas from India and had begun to synthesize them into a uniquely Khmer vision. And most importantly, they had forged the concept of the Temple Mountain and the cult of the God King, providing both the symbolic blueprint and the political motivation for the architectural epic that was to follow. The foundations were laid, not just in the soil of Cambodia, but in the collective soul of its people. The age of small brick towers was drawing to a close, a quiet prelude to the symphony of stone that awaited its conductor. The skills honed at places like Samra Pre Kuk were a rehearsal for a grander stage, a preparation for manipulating not just brick and stone, but the very element that gave life to the kingdom: water. The early god kings had learned to build their homes for the gods. Their successors would learn to reshape the entire world around them. Hydraulic wonders, Angkor Thom, and water management as architecture. We leave now the quiet, scattered sanctuaries of the early god kings, those first whispers of faith in brick and earth. Our journey continues as the Khmer civilization consolidates its power, its ambition no longer content with humble towers reaching for the sky, but now seeking to reshape the very land itself. To understand the colossal stone temples that are to come, we must first understand the lifeblood that nourished the empire, the element that was both a terrifying threat and a divine gift: water. For the Khmer did not simply build upon the land. They sculpted it with water, creating an engineered landscape so vast and sophisticated that the waterworks themselves became a form of monumental architecture, a testament to a unique form of genius. The world of the Khmer was a world of extremes, governed by the rhythm of the monsoon. For half the year, the heavens would open, unleashing torrential rains that swelled the rivers in the great Tunnel Sap Lake, flooding the plains in a deluge that could sweep away villages and ruin crops. This was the time of chaos, of untamed nature. Then, just as suddenly, the rains would cease, and the other half of the year would be dominated by a relentless sun, a parching drought that baked the earth and withered the fields. To survive, let alone to thrive and build an empire, was to solve this fundamental paradox: how to control the destructive excess of the wet season, and store it to overcome the deadly scarcity of the dry. The answer the Khmer devised was not just an engineering solution. It was an act of cosmic ordering, a reflection of the king's divine duty to bring harmony to his realm. Their solution was the bere, a construction so immense it defies easy description. These were not simply reservoirs. They were colossal, man-made lakes, liquid mirrors held within the landscape by massive earthen dikes. To stand at the edge of one, such as the now dry East Bere or the still vast West Bere, would have been to gaze upon what seemed like a freshwater ocean. The West Bere, for instance, stretches for 5 miles in length and is over a mile wide. Imagine the undertaking. This was a feat accomplished without modern machinery, relying only on the power of human and animal labor, on woven baskets, and unwavering determination. Thousands upon thousands of workers would have moved millions of cubic feet of earth, meticulously building up the retaining dikes, ensuring they were level and strong enough to hold back the immense pressure of the captured monsoon waters. The precision required was astounding, a testament to a deep understanding of surveying, hydrology, and sheer logistical power. These beres were the heart of the kingdom's power, capturing the annual deluge and transforming it from a threat into the empire's greatest asset. But a heart is useless without veins to carry its lifeblood. Flowing out from the great beres was an intricate and geometrically precise network of canals and channels, a vascular system for the entire Angkorian plain. These channels, some running for miles, were the arteries that carried the stored water to the vast surrounding rice paddies. This system of controlled irrigation was the engine of Khmer civilization. It freed them from the whims of the monsoon, allowing for a stable and predictable water supply throughout the year. The result was an agricultural miracle. Instead of a single risky rice harvest, Khmer farmers could now produce 2 or even 3 bountiful harvests annually. This created a colossal surplus of food, a wealth of grain that could sustain a population far larger than the land would naturally allow. This surplus fed the priests, the officials, the artists, and most critically, the enormous workforce of laborers and soldiers. The grand temples we so admire were, in a very real sense, built upon a foundation of rice, a foundation made possible by the architectural mastery of water. The control of water was therefore the control of life itself, making the hydraulic system the ultimate instrument of statecraft. The king who commanded the water commanded the kingdom's prosperity, reinforcing his position as the Devaraja, the divine guarantor of order. This network was not hidden away as mere infrastructure. It was a visible and ever-present symbol of the king's power and his sacred pact with the gods. The shimmering surfaces of the beres and the straight, orderly lines of the canals imposed a human, divine geometry upon the wild, tangled chaos of the jungle. Yet, the role of water went far deeper than the purely practical. In the Khmer worldview, it was a profoundly sacred element, an architectural component imbued with cosmological significance. Just as the temple itself was a replica of the cosmic Mount Meru, the waters that surrounded it were earthly representations of the Sea of Milk, the primordial ocean from which all life was created in Hindu mythology. The wide, defensive moats that encircled every major temple complex were far more than just fortifications. They were symbolic boundaries, separating the sacred, ordered space of the temple from the profane world outside. To cross the moat, often over a stone causeway, was the first step in a spiritual pilgrimage, a transition from the mundane to the divine. Nowhere is this fusion of the practical and the sacred more beautifully realized than in the Temple Islands. The Khmer kings constructed temples, known as mebans, on artificial islands built in the very center of their Great Berets. Imagine the sight, a stone sanctuary intricately carved, seeming to float weightlessly upon the vast, shimmering expanse of the man-made sea. The West Meban, located in the center of the West Beret, is a prime example. To reach it, a visitor would have had to travel by boat, the journey across the water itself becoming an act of ritual passage. In the 20th century, the magnificent bronze statue of a reclining Vishnu was discovered from the depths of the West Beret near the Meban. This was Vishnu Ananashayan, the god dreaming the universe into existence while sleeping on the cosmic ocean. The Beret, then, was not just an irrigation tank. It was the cosmic ocean made manifest, with the god himself resting at its heart, a stunningly literal realization of their most sacred myths. This principle of water, as a defining architectural feature, reached its zenith in the design of the great capital city, Angkor Thom. Founded in the late 12th century by the empire's most prolific builder, King Jayavarman VII, Angkor Thom was a city conceived on a divine scale. It was a perfect square, nearly 2 miles on each side, enclosed by a formidable laterite wall over 20 feet high. But its first and most dramatic line of defense and demarcation was its moat. This was no simple ditch, but a waterway over 300 feet wide, a vast liquid frame for the entire city. The 5 grand causeways that led to the city's gates were flanked by stone balustrades, depicting the Hindu creation myth of the churning of the sea of milk, with gods and demons pulling on the body of a giant serpent to create the elixir of immortality. To enter Angkor Thom was to ritually reenact the creation of the cosmos, crossing the symbolic ocean to enter the ordered realm of the God King. The entire city was a microcosm of the kingdom, a city where water was not just an external feature, but was woven into its very fabric. The urban grid was integrated with a larger hydraulic network, ensuring that the capital was the command center of the system that gave the empire its life. Water was omnipresent in the grand moat, in the royal bathing pools, and in the channels that supplied the populace. It was a constant reminder of the king's power, the source of the kingdom's stability, and the physical embodiment of a sacred cosmic order. So we see that before a single great stone was laid for Angkor Wat, the Khmer had already achieved a form of architectural mastery on an epic scale. They had learned to read the landscape, to tame the seasons, and to command the very element of life. Their genius lay in this holistic vision, in seeing the management of water not as a separate discipline of engineering, but as an integral part of architecture and urban design, inseparable from the sacred and symbolic purpose of their constructions. They created a landscape of immense, tranquil beauty and staggering efficiency, a world of shimmering berets and orderly canals that was both a paradise on earth and a reflection of the heavens. It was from this foundation of controlled water and the agricultural wealth it generated that the Khmer could now turn their full attention to their ultimate architectural ambition, to build God's own mountain on earth, a task that would culminate in the unparalleled wonder of Angkor Wat. The Temple Mountain, Angkor Wat's cosmic design and sacred art. From the shimmering, engineered waterscapes that gave the Khmer their power, we now turn our focus to the jewel that this power created, the culmination of every architectural and spiritual idea we have discussed. We arrive at a place that needs no introduction, a name that resonates through history as the very definition of a lost city and a wonder of the world. Angkor Wat. Here, The concept of the Temple Mountain, which began as a humble brick tower on a hillock, reaches its absolute and most breathtaking zenith. It is a symphony in stone, a mathematical poem, and a prayer so vast it seems to have commanded the sun and stars to pay it homage. Our approach begins by crossing its great western causeway, a stone path laid across a moat of truly epic proportions. This is the cosmic ocean we have spoken of, but rendered with a new and definitive grandeur. The moat is over 600 feet wide and stretches for more than 3 miles in circumference. Its surface a perfect, tranquil mirror reflecting the sky and the impossible vision rising from its center. The water, held within its sandstone-lined basin, creates a profound sense of separation. To cross it is to leave the ordinary world behind, to step into a realm of pure symbolism and sacred geometry. The air here seems different, hushed by the sheer scale and perfection of what lies ahead. Before us, the temple complex does not reveal itself all at once. It unfolds in a series of layered enclosures, a deliberate and masterfully controlled architectural experience. We pass through an outer gopura, or gateway pavilion, a cruciform structure that hints at the complexity within. And then we see them, rising against the Cambodian sky, the 5 iconic towers, shaped like lotus buds, their silhouette the very symbol of a nation. This is the architectural realization of Mount Meru. The central tower, the tallest and most sacred, represents the mountain's central peak, the axis of the world. The 4 surrounding towers are its lesser peaks. The concentric, covered galleries that form the temple's 3 main levels are the mountain ranges that encircle Meru. And the moat, our point of entry, is the primordial ocean. Angkor Wat is not a depiction of the cosmic mountain. In the eyes of its builders, it is the cosmic mountain, a perfect stone replica of the center of the universe. Its patron, King Suryavarman II, dedicated this monumental undertaking to the god Vishnu in the early 12th century. This was a departure from the predominantly Shivic tradition of his predecessors, but the core purpose remained the same: to create a state temple that would serve as the spiritual center of the empire and, ultimately, as the king's own funerary monument, a magnificent machine designed to ensure his soul's union with the divine after death. The temple is oriented to the west, a direction associated with Vishnu, and more somberly, with the end of life, which has led scholars to confirm its funerary purpose. This westward orientation also plays a part in one of the temple's most magical secrets: its perfect astronomical alignment. The Khmer were not only master builders, but also keen astronomers. Twice a year, during the spring and autumn equinoxes, a visitor standing at the western entrance will witness a precise celestial event. As the sun rises, it appears to climb the sky directly over the pinnacle of the central tower, a moment of perfect union between the earthly and the celestial. The temple was built to capture the sun, to align itself with the grand, predictable cycles of the cosmos, reinforcing its role as a place of divine order and a bridge between humanity and the heavens. As we move deeper into the temple, ascending its levels, the architecture becomes more complex and the spaces more intimate. We find ourselves within the vast, covered galleries that form the outer perimeter of the first level. And here, we discover Angkor Wat's greatest artistic treasure, its bas-reliefs. For nearly half a mile, the inner walls of this gallery are covered in the most extensive and finely crafted stone carvings on Earth. This is not mere decoration. It is a library in stone, a narrative epic of gods, demons, and kings unfolding in a continuous flowing tapestry. Let us walk slowly along the southern gallery. The air is cool here, shielded from the sun. The only sound is the soft shuffle of our own feet as we trace the stories carved into the sandstone. One entire wall, hundreds of feet long, is dedicated to a single, powerful narrative. A historical procession of King Suryavarman II himself. We see the king, larger than the others, seated upon his throne, surrounded by his courtiers, generals, and Brahmin priests. The detail is astonishing. We can see the fine patterns of the parasols held above the noblemen, the different standards of each regiment, the musicians playing their instruments. It is a frozen moment of imperial power, a declaration of the king's divine right to rule, immortalized in stone. We turn a corner and enter the Eastern Gallery, and the atmosphere shifts from the historical to the mythological. Here we are confronted with the colossal scene of the churning of the Sea of Milk, the Hindu creation myth we first encountered on the causeways of Angkor Thom, but rendered here with unparalleled energy and grace. For over 150 feet, the wall is a dynamic frieze of movement. On one side, a line of 92 asuras, or demons, grimacing and powerful, pull on the head of the giant serpent Vasuki. On the other, a line of 88 devas, or gods, their expression serene and composed, pull on the serpent's tail. They are using the serpent's body as a rope, coiled around Mount Mandara, to churn the cosmic ocean below. At the center, orchestrating the entire event, is the great god Vishnu. From the churning ocean, we see all manner of life emerging. Celestial beings, magical creatures, and most importantly, the Apsaras, beautiful divine dancers, and Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity. The entire panel pulses with a rhythmic energy, the stone seeming to ripple with the effort of the gods and demons. It is a masterpiece of composition and narrative clarity, a story told with such vibrancy that it feels as if it could spring to life at any moment. These reliefs were meant to be read, to be circumambulated in a specific ritual direction. The soft, ambient light filtering through the colonnades would have played across the carved surfaces, creating a subtle dance of light and shadow that would have animated the figures. One can only imagine the effect on a 12th century pilgrim, walking this sacred path, surrounded by the living stories of their faith. Beyond these grand epics, the temple is covered in a staggering profusion of smaller, more intimate carvings. Most famous are the Apsaras, or Devatas, the celestial nymphs who seem to adorn every available surface. There are nearly 2,000 of them, and remarkably, no two are exactly alike. Each has a unique hairstyle, a different set of jewelry, a subtle variation in her expression or posture. Some smile serenely, others seem caught in a moment of playful dance. They represent the divine beauty and joy that awaited the faithful in the heavenly realms, lending an air of grace and sensuality to the otherwise imposing stone structure. The construction itself remains a source of wonder. Angkor Wat is built almost entirely of sandstone, with laterite used for hidden structural elements and the outer enclosure. An estimated 5 to 10 million sandstone blocks, some weighing up to 1.5 tons, were quarried from the sacred Kulen Mountains, over 25 miles away. They were transported down the Siem Reap River on rafts, a monumental logistical feat. Most astonishingly, these blocks were laid with a precision so perfect that they require no mortar to bind them. The joints are sometimes so fine, it is impossible to slide a razor blade between them. The surfaces were ground and polished until they fit together seamlessly, held in place by gravity and a system of internal mortise and tenon joints. The iconic tiered roofs of the galleries and towers were created using the traditional corbelling technique, each layer of stone projecting slightly inward until the gap could be capped. It is a testament to the incredible skill of the Khmer engineers and masons, a level of craftsmanship that is difficult to comprehend even today. Angkor Wat stands as the ultimate expression of the Khmer soul. It is a monument of perfect symmetry and cosmic harmony, a place where mathematics, astronomy, art, and faith converge into a single overwhelming statement. It is the earthly home of a god and the heavenly palace for a king. It is a library of myths and a record of history. While it represents the pinnacle of a civilization, the creative spirit of the Khmer was not exhausted by this singular achievement. Other kings would follow, with other visions, and the jungles around Angkor Wat still hold other marvels, each with a different story to tell, a different face to show the world. Beyond Angkor Wat, Bayon's faces and other Khmer architectural gems. Our journey now drifts away from the perfect, classical harmony of Angkor Wat, leaving its sun-aligned spires behind us. We move forward in time into a new era of Khmer architecture, one defined not by singular, cosmic order, but by a fascinating, almost bewildering complexity and a deeply personal, humanistic vision. Our destination is the very heart of the last great capital, Angkor Thom, and the enigmatic temple that stands at its center, the Bayon. Here, the architectural language of the Khmer shifts, becoming more mysterious, more introspective, and in many ways, more strange. It is as if the serene, outward-looking confidence of Vishnu's temple has been replaced by a deep, inward gaze, a gaze that manifests itself in stone and watches over the kingdom from 100 different directions at once. We find ourselves back within the great walled city of Angkor Thom, at the precise intersection of its main axis. Before us rises a structure that seems, at first, to be less a building and more a mountain of jumbled stone, a chaotic pile of galleries, towers, and terraces. This is the Bayon, the state temple of the great King Jayavarman VII. Unlike the clear, geometric layout of Angkor Wat, the Bayon is a place of delightful confusion. Its plan is a dense maze of narrow corridors, small courtyards, and steep stairways, creating an experience that is deeply intimate and endlessly surprising. There is no single, grand vista. Instead, the temple reveals itself piece by piece, drawing the visitor inward, deeper and deeper into its stone embrace. The initial feeling of chaos is intentional, a reflection of a different cosmological and religious sensibility. Jayavarman VII was a devout follower of Mahayana Buddhism, a school of thought that emphasizes compassion and the interconnectedness of all beings. The Bayon is his ultimate expression of this faith. It is not a distant, perfect home for a celestial god, but a temple that seeks to embody the very presence of the divine on earth, in a form that is both immediate and overwhelming. And then, as we navigate its shaded passages and ascend its terraces, we begin to see them. They emerge slowly from the stone, at first indistinct, then revealing themselves with an unnerving clarity. Faces, enormous, serene, smiling faces, carved onto the four sides of every one of the temple's 54 towers. 216 faces in total, each one a masterpiece of subtle expression. The eyes are downcast, as if in a state of profound meditation. The lips are curved into a gentle, enigmatic smile, a smile that seems to hold the secrets of the universe. It is a smile of compassion, of wisdom, of a peace that transcends all understanding. It is this feature, above all others, that makes the Bayon a place of unique power and mystery. For centuries, scholars have debated the identity of these faces. Are they the face of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, the being who embodies the core tenets of Jayavarman, the seventh faith? Or are they, perhaps, an idealized portrait of the king himself, portrayed in the divine form of the Bodhisattva? The most compelling theory is that they are both at once. In a brilliant fusion of political and religious ideology, Jayavarman VII presents himself as the living embodiment of divine compassion, his serene gaze watching over every corner of his vast empire. From the central peak of his capital city, his divine presence radiated outwards, a promise of protection and a symbol of his enlightened rule. To stand on the upper terrace of the Bayon is to be surrounded by this silent, smiling army. The faces are everywhere, at every level, peering over one another, emerging from behind pillars, creating a forest of divine countenances. The effect is profound. It is not the awe-inspiring grandeur of Angkor Wat, which keeps the divine at a respectful distance. Here, the divine is personal, immediate, and inescapable. You feel watched, not with judgment, but with a gentle, all-knowing benevolence. The sun and shadows play across the carved features throughout the day, causing the expressions to subtly shift and change, as if the very stone is alive and breathing. Like Angkor Wat, the Bayon also possesses magnificent bas-reliefs, but their character is strikingly different. While Angkor Wat's reliefs focused on grand mythology and the formal pomp of the court, the Bayon's reliefs, located on its outer galleries, bring to life the everyday world of the 12th century Khmer Empire. Here we see not just gods and kings, but ordinary people. We see soldiers marching to war, but also the domestic scenes in the camps, with men cooking over fires and playing games. We see bustling markets, with merchants selling fish and vegetables. We see fishermen casting their nets, cockfights, and lively festivals. These carvings are a vibrant, bustling tapestry of daily life, rendered with a charm and realism that is deeply engaging. They provide an unparalleled window into the lives of the people who built these incredible monuments, celebrating the entire spectrum of human existence, from the sacred to the profane. It is a uniquely Buddhist perspective, one that finds the potential for enlightenment in all aspects of life. Yet the creative genius of Jayavarman VII and his architects was not confined to the Bayon. The king was the most prolific builder in Khmer history, and his reign saw the construction of a vast network of infrastructure, including roads, rest houses, and hospitals, alongside his monumental temples. Two other jewels from this period offer a different experience of Khmer art and the empire's enduring spirit. North of Angkor Thom lies Priya Khan, a sacred sword. This vast complex was built to honor the king's father, but it was much more than just a temple. It was a Buddhist monastery and a university, at one point housing over 1,000 monks and teachers. Priya Khan's layout is a flat, sprawling labyrinth of galleries and courtyards, a stark contrast to the verticality of Angkor Wat and the Bayon. To enter is to lose oneself in a succession of doorways, each one framing the next in a seemingly infinite regression. The feeling is one of exploration and discovery. The temple is remarkable for its syncretic nature. While its central sanctuary was dedicated to the Bodhisattva Lokesvara, it contained dozens of smaller shrines dedicated to a vast array of both Buddhist and Hindu deities, as well as ancestral spirits. It was a temple of religious inclusion, a microcosm of the diverse spiritual landscape of the empire. all held in harmonious balance. Its carvings are exquisite, including beautiful apsaras and stern Varapalas, and one of its most unique features is a two-storied, colonnaded structure whose purpose is still debated, perhaps a library or a granary, its rounded pillars reminiscent of classical Greek architecture. A fascinating and mysterious anomaly in the heart of the jungle. If Priya Khan is a testament to religious harmony, our next destination, Ta Prohm, is a monument to the awesome and patient power of nature itself. Also built by Jayavarman VII, this time as a monastery dedicated to his mother. Ta Prohm is perhaps best known to the world as the Tomb Raider Temple. It has been deliberately left, for the most part, in the same condition it was found, clutched in the embrace of the jungle. Here, stone and wood are locked in a slow, silent dance that has lasted for centuries. Walking through Ta Prohm is an ethereal, almost surreal experience. Massive silk cotton and strangler fig trees grow out of the very fabric of the temple. Their roots, like colossal silver-gray serpents, pour over walls, pry apart galleries, and cascade down from rooftops. A giant root might frame a doorway, its wooden tendrils encircling a beautifully carved lintel. A courtyard, once open to the sky, may now be shaded by a canopy of leaves sprouting from a tree that has claimed a tower as its base. There is no clear line here between the architectural and the organic. They have fused into a single breathtaking entity. The temple is a ruin, yes, but it is a living ruin. It demonstrates the inevitable victory of the jungle, but it does so with a poignant and haunting beauty. Ta Prohm does not speak of the end of the Khmer Empire as a failure, but rather as a transformation, a return of human ambition to the gentle, persistent embrace of the earth. It is a powerful meditation on time, permanence, and the beautiful cycle of creation and decay. These sights the enigmatic Bayon with its watchful faces, the sprawling, inclusive labyrinth of Priya Khan, and the jungle-consumed beauty of Ta Prohm reveal the remarkable diversity and adaptability of Khmer architecture. They show us that the empire's story did not end with the perfection of Angkor Wat. It continued to evolve, to explore new ideas, and to create new forms of sacred space, each one a unique reflection of its patron's vision and the enduring spirit of its people. But even the most powerful empires must one day fade, and their great stone monuments fall silent. Our final part of the journey will explore this fading light, the reasons for the empire's decline, and the enduring mystery of its magnificent legacy swallowed by the jungle, waiting to be rediscovered. Jungle's Embrace, the enduring mystery and legacy of the Khmer Empire. Our story now reaches its final chapter, a quiet twilight that descends upon the great cities of the Khmer. After the frenetic building energy of Jayavarman VII, after the construction of Angkor Thom and its forest of smiling faces, a different kind of silence begins to settle over the landscape. No empire, no matter how mighty, lasts forever. The immense power that had carved mountains from stone and tamed the monsoon rains began a slow, inexorable decline, a fading of the brilliant light that had shone for over 600 years. There was no single cataclysmic event, but rather a confluence of streams, a gradual shifting of the foundations upon which the empire was built. One of the most profound changes was a quiet revolution of the soul. The state cult of the Devaraja, the god-king who built colossal temples of stone to house Hindu deities and ensure his own divinity, began to wane. A new spiritual current, which had been present for centuries, now swelled into a gentle, irresistible tide. This was Theravada Buddhism, a more austere and personal faith brought by monks from Sri Lanka. It emphasized individual enlightenment, simplicity, and compassion, ideals that resonated deeply with the populace. This new faith did not demand monumental temples as conduits to the divine. It required only a quiet heart and a righteous path. The immense resources of the state, the labor, the wealth, the artistic genius were no longer channeled into building earthly replicas of Mount Meru. The focus shifted from the grand state temple to the local monastery, from the god king to the community of monks. And with this shift, the age of stone giants quietly drew to a close. At the same time, the very earth and sky that the Khmer had so masterfully engineered began to present new challenges. The sophisticated hydraulic system, the network of barrays and canals that was the empire's lifeblood, required constant maintenance and a stable climate. But evidence suggests the climate began to change, with intense droughts followed by devastating monsoon floods. This wild oscillation would have placed immense strain on the waterworks, leading to damaged infrastructure, reduced rice harvests, and a weakening of the very system that sustained the kingdom's vast population and power. The once reliable engine of prosperity began to sputter. From the outside, new powers were rising. The neighboring kingdom of Ayutthaya in Siam grew in strength and ambition. A series of wars and invasions placed further pressure on the Khmer, with the capital being sacked in the 5th century. These conflicts, combined with the gradual shift of maritime trade routes away from the inland capital, further eroded the empire's economic and political dominance. Slowly, the center of gravity of the Khmer world began to move south, towards the confluence of the Mekong and Tonle Sap rivers, near modern-day Phnom Penh, a location better suited for riverine trade. The great city of Angkor, though never completely deserted, began to empty. Its purpose as the political and religious heart of a mighty empire had faded. And so, the jungle, which had been held at bay for centuries by the will of the god kings, began its patient reclamation. Feel the silence that descends. The bustling avenues of Angkor Thom grow quiet. The clamor of markets and the chants of 1,000 priests give way to the hum of insects and the distant call of a gibbon. A green tide begins to rise, not of water, but of vegetation. Seeds, carried by the wind and birds, find purchase in the fine joints of the sandstone galleries. Tiny roots, with the patient strength of water, probe the crevices, beginning their slow, relentless work of prying stone from stone. Vines, like living ropes, drape themselves over the carved faces of the Bayon, softening their enigmatic smiles. The great moats, their edges no longer perfectly maintained, begin to silt up, their waters choked with lotus and hyacinth. In the courtyards of Priya Khan and Ta Prohm, saplings sprout, growing year by year into giants whose roots cascade over walls and through doorways, embracing the temples in a powerful, inseparable union. The cool, dark galleries become the domain of bats. The ornate Naga balustrades become resting places for lizards, basking in the filtered sun. The city of stone was not destroyed, but rather transformed. It was wrapped in a green shroud, put to a long and quiet sleep, its secrets kept safe by the embrace of the forest. For centuries, Angkor slept, while it was never truly lost to the local Khmer people and Buddhist monks who continued to worship at the ever-majestic Angkor Wat. Its existence faded from the memory of the wider world. It became a place of myth, a ghost city whispered about by the few intrepid Portuguese and Japanese visitors who stumbled upon it. It was not until the mid-19th century that the spell was truly broken. A French naturalist named Henry Mouat, exploring the Cambodian interior, was led to the site. His vivid descriptions and detailed drawings, published posthumously in Europe, ignited the world's imagination. He wrote of a temple grander than anything left by Greece or Rome, a sad and beautiful contrast to the quiet kingdom he found it in. Mouat's accounts, though romanticized, opened the floodgates. Archaeologists, scholars, and conservators followed, beginning the monumental task of studying, clearing, and preserving this vast legacy. This work continues to this day, an international effort to protect what is now recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a treasure belonging to all of humanity. The stones are still revealing their secrets through inscriptions, archaeological finds, and new understandings of their complex astronomical and hydrological functions. The legacy of the Khmer architects is far more than just a collection of beautiful ruins. It is a profound testament to human ingenuity and the enduring power of faith. It is a story of a civilization that learned to live in harmony with a challenging environment, transforming it into a source of immense wealth and stability. It is a celebration of artistic expression, where every surface became a canvas for telling the stories of gods and mortals. And in its fading, it is a poignant meditation on the nature of time and impermanence, a reminder that even the greatest works of humanity eventually return to the earth. As our journey ends, let the images of these temples settle in your mind. Picture the warm, rough texture of the sandstone, the cool air of the shaded galleries, the serene, smiling faces of the Bayon, and the impossible silhouette of Angkor Wat reflected in its tranquil moat. The architectural epic of the Khmer is a story of ambition and devotion, of water and stone, of a jungle that embraced a city and a legacy that has awakened to inspire the world. The stones still stand, holding their silence and their stories, dreaming under the Cambodian sun. The journey is now complete. Our travels through time, across the Great Berets and into the heart of Stone Mountains, have come to a gentle close. The echoes of the chisels have faded, the footsteps of pilgrims have fallen silent, and the great city rests once more in the quiet of the jungle's embrace. Let the images and feelings linger, not as thoughts to be held, but as soft currents to carry you now into the deep, peaceful ocean of your own rest. The story is told. The mysteries remain, sleeping in the stone, waiting for the dawn. There is nothing more to see, nothing more to hear. There is only the soft darkness, the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, and the quiet legacy of a lost empire to cradle you as you drift away. Sleep now, rest well,